Epic Games is the company that made the popular game Fortnite. And currently they are suing Apple for antitrust violations. Now, what they're arguing is that Apple forces them to use their payment processing system through their app. And of course, they take a giant percentage of the revenue, 30% of all app developers who use the platform. Now, to get around it, Epic Games decided to go in a different direction, and Apple didn't like it. So the trial that's taking place right now will center on a legal debate over whether Apple is a monopoly. Epic's lawyers have argued that companies need iPhones to reach customers, and that Apple unfairly forces app makers to use its payment system and pay its fees, which in many cases is 30% of revenue. So the trial, which is expected to last about 3 weeks, carries major implications. So this could set precedent for the future. If Epic wins, for instance, it will upend the economics of the $100 billion app market and create a path for millions of companies and developers to avoid sending up to 30% of their app sales to Apple. Epic has pointed to the commission it charges in its own marketplace for game developers, 12%. Now, what Epic did was essentially create its own payment processing system, and it encouraged users to use that processing system as opposed to Apple's. Apple didn't like it and booted Epic Games off of its platform. And that's really what kind of sparked this lawsuit and this epic antitrust battle. Now, after Epic sued Apple did have its commission to 15% for developers that make less than $1 million on their apps. The new rate applies to about 98% of the developers that paid Apple's commission. According to Sensor Tower, more than 95% of Apple's app revenues come from companies paying the full 30% rate.
Okay, so I'm a little mixed on this. I think it's a really interesting case, but it's already worth it on that last part that Anna just told you. So the people who need to break on it the most are the people who make less than $1 million and are small time apps that are trying to survive in the world. And it's clear that if some company like Epic didn't force Apple into that decision, they wouldn't have made it. They would have kept it at 30% for everybody. There's no question that Epic putting public pressure on led to that decision, and that's great for the little guy. So here to Epic for at least forcing that to happen, right? And look at what the second part of what Anna told you. It actually doesn't cost Apple that much money because they're making most of the money from the people making tons and tons of money at the top of the app game, right? So it's the right thing to do. They should have done it before they got pressured into it. Okay, now, does Apple have a right to charge 30%? Sure they do. So they can charge whatever they want. And in the beginning, it's possible that their app market wouldn't have worked. And they might have charged 30% to a couple of people and then it dies out. It might have been that the price was too high, right? But people said, no, we're willing to pay that price because the market that you have set up is worth it. By the way, one of the companies that does that is us. We pay Apple 30% when you get the app through an iOS, our app, TYT app, which you should, okay? Now, do I like the 30%? No, I don't. I think it's too high. And so, and by the way, now it might be 15% for us. I'm gonna have to look into it. But at the same time, would I take it off that market? I wouldn't. So I think Apple has an interesting case to make, but here's the last twist on it. There's many twists, but the one really important one here is Epic says, yes, but if you make the market, remember you're making money off the phones, right? And then you're making money off the apps, getting 30% of all the apps. But then you say another app company cannot compete with us on our platform. That's interesting, because then you're beginning to use what is a near monopoly on the phones to squeeze out your competition in the other area of your business. That's an interesting legal argument, and I can't wait to see how the courts are gonna decide that.
Apple has countered this argument regarding the monopoly on phones by saying, look, we have created this revolutionary platform for apps. Apple has said that it developed a world-changing product in the iPhone that led to economic miracle. The iPhone that led to an economic miracle in mobile apps. Apple has spent billions of dollars developing the iPhone and another $100 million on its app store, the company said. And charging a commission on app sales is partly how it recoups that investment and keeps apps safe. Epic has countered that Apple's commissions do very little for security. So, Epic Games basically saying, look, what you're saying that you're offering us in your platform isn't as great as you claim it is. But I would also counter Apple's argument by saying, listen, 30% is quite a cut of what you're demanding here. And when you look at how much money they make in pure profits, cutting down that amount to something that's a little more reasonable isn't the end of the world, right? They have created a monopoly, and then at the same time, there's a little bit of price gouging going on in order to be able to exist on that platform.
Yeah, well, so look, two bad arguments in this case are clear. One is Apple's in a little bit of trouble here because, look, nobody would pay the 30% unless it was a near monopoly. Right? You would have competition and the number would come down. 30% is a very high number. So I don't know how they're gonna get around that. I'm curious to see how it's gonna play out. Apple has another very bad argument. They say, as Anna told you, $100 million. So it costs $100 million to develop the App Store. Do you know how much they make in the App Store per month? $30 billion. That is a stunning number. Look, the only reason why Epic can battle them is because they also make a ton of money. And so the lawyer cost for a small company is devastating. For these giant companies, the legal costs, they're like, oh, who cares? What are we gonna, so the trial's gonna cost us 10 million, 50 million? It's nothing because Epic is now valued at $29 billion, okay? Now, but remember, Epic's at 29 billion. Apple averages 30 billion in revenue a month. I'm sorry, not just from the App Store, but overall for Apple, right? So don't tell me that the 100 million you sent on the App Store, you haven't made it up yet. No, of course you have. Of course you made giant profit on that. Don't bother making bad arguments.
Man, it's just never enough. It's incredible. It's never enough.
Of course, but by the way, just understand how we set up the system wrong. So I frustrate a lot of our left-wing audience by saying that I still believe in capitalism. I think it has to be checked by democracy. But one giant mistake we've made that has cost us everything is that when we set the laws on corporations, they're legal fictions. We can create them any way we want and we set any rules we want on them. But we only set one rule, maximize profit. And if you don't maximize profit, actually you're violating your fiduciary responsibility in a public corporation like Apple. So if Tim Cook did not maximize profit by charging the absolute maximum that he could charge, no matter what the circumstances are, he'd be fired and he'd be replaced by someone who was more ruthless. Because we designed the system wrong and said, don't worry about anything but making every red penny you can, no matter who you crush in the process. That's not Apple's fault, that's our politicians' fault. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR, so those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.